What's going on YouTube? My name's David and this is my video review of the PlayStation 4. The gameplay featured in this video will alternate between Killzone Shadowfall and Call of Duty Ghosts. In this review, I will discuss the console's gaming performance and make purchase recommendations on whether the console is worth its $400 price tag or if your money is better invested towards another next generation gaming experience. With regards to hardware specifications, the PlayStation 4 is a dramatic improvement over any of the previous generation consoles. The game that makes the best use of this additional hardware is Killzone Shadowfall, arguably PlayStation 4's most important launch exclusive. The sheer enormity of Killzone's graphical prowess leaves no question of the PlayStation 4's ability to deliver immersive visual experiences previously unbeknownst to console gamers.
This is what you do? Experimenting on us? You disgust me.
I came here to destroy this.
Don't lie to me. You came here to bury the truth. Wasn't destroying Helgen enough? I will not see any more innocents die.
Where's Massar?
Massar will answer for what she has done. So will your leaders.
With the launch title designation comes great expectations, and Killzone delivers, convincingly showcasing the gaming generation visual evolution and outperforming the late-life PlayStation 3 titles with much chagrin. However, the quality of the gameplay leaves much to be desired, and I hope that future games use the 60 frames per second baseline instead of settling on 30 frames per second. Future games on the PlayStation 4 will perform better as developers are more familiar with the hardware, but the amount of overhead is not as large relative to PlayStation 3 launch titles and PlayStation 3 late-life games. The PS3 early generation games were so mediocre because the programming architecture was very foreign to developers. The PS4 uses more programmer-friendly architecture, so games will start looking better earlier in the console lifecycle. Even though games will have better graphics, it is unrealistic to expect any kind of visual upgrade to the same extent as the graphical improvement going from Resistance, one of the PS3's first games, to The Last of Us, one of the last games for the PlayStation 3. The next generation graphics of Call of Duty Ghosts, however, are barely worth a paragraph in my writing. Infinity Ward has realized that they can stick the Call of Duty label on cereal and people will buy it in droves. Ghosts is so poorly coded that high-end PCs struggle running the game. Call of Duty Ghosts is not a remarkable improvement over previous generation Call of Duty, and it is a blight on the possibilities of PlayStation 4 hardware. While I find the game fun to play, the developers are insulting players' intelligence while wiping their asses with money. Another multi-platform AAA shooter, Battlefield 4, does make graphical advancements worthy of the next-gen label. Although it doesn't run at 1080p natively, it manages to start at 60 frames per second and have 64 players per game, while still achieving a respectable level of visual quality. Players coming from PlayStation 3 Battlefield will wonder how they ever had fun playing Battlefield on an older generation console. Battlefield 4 might be one of the best launch title indications of the discrepancy between the Xbox One and PS4 hardware capabilities because the Xbox One version of Battlefield 4 runs at 720p and the PS4 version of Battlefield 4 runs at 900p. Going forward, developers may get over the memory bandwidth issues plaguing the Xbox One, but it appears that the PlayStation 4 multi-platform games will look better. The PS4 controller, the DualShock 4, is quite possibly the best controller I have ever used. I was initially skeptical of how comfortable the controller would be because I've had a bad experience with previous generation PlayStation controllers, but after just a few hours with the controller, it felt like I had been using it for years. The symmetrical layout is aesthetically pleasing, and the handles are long and wide enough to allow for a firmer grip. The touchpad is an innovative addition, and Killzone effectively integrates it into the gameplay. By swiping in one of four directions, you give orders to your Aldrone to attack, defend, stun, or zipline. I expect future games to make better use of the touchpad. The light bar doesn't do much right now except flash red when you are low on health, but future games might find a way to use it to enhance gameplay. It makes sense that the buttons are membrane and non-mechanical, because using mechanical buttons would increase the controller price even further beyond its daunting $60. For comparison's sake, my mechanical keyboard is $64. While the L2 and R2 buttons are improved from the DualShock 3 and have variable pressure feedback, I still would prefer the Xbox triggers, especially since most games use a digital yes-no input and don't utilize varying pressures. Nevertheless, there is a good chance that the DualShock 4 will be my primary controller even for PC games where I use a controller in lieu of mouse and keyboard. The PS4 comes with a whole host of features that embellish the gaming experience. The built-in recorder and the controller share button make it simple to post the last 15 minutes of gameplay to Facebook. This helps those who don't have a dedicated capture card. It is more convenient to use an external capture device, but recording over HDMI is still blocked. Game streaming is as easy as linking your account to Twitch and broadcasting with the controller share button. The PlayStation Network also includes media apps such as Netflix and a web browser. Unlike the PlayStation 3, to play multiplayer games on the PSN, you must first pay for a PlayStation Plus subscription. After an overview of the PlayStation 4's major selling points, now is a good time to analyze whether it is a worthwhile $400 purchase. Even though the PS4 makes a huge jump in hardware power compared to last generation consoles, the machine is built for the present and not the future. The graphics technology was available to entry-level PCs in 2012, and it is becoming obsolete quickly. The hardware power should have a large enough overhead that developers can start at 1080p and 60 frames per second gaming instead of it being a luxury. Even for exclusive titles, it looks like you have to choose one or the other. Playability of a game is subjective, but playable and optimal are two different terms. It is non-negotiable that 60 frames per second gaming makes a dramatic improvement over the destitute experience at 30 frames per second. Every reviewer, whether it's a professional website or your average consumer, has praised Battlefield 4 for managing a higher frames per second target than its previous console predecessor, and the reviewers have remarked that the difference is night and day. I know that I sound like a broken record by constantly regurgitating 60 frames per second, 60 FPS, but believe me when I say that I'm focused on FPS not only because of my PC gaming background, but because FPS is a very important and objective indication of how well a game plays. Great looking screenshots don't matter when your game runs like a PowerPoint presentation as Grand Theft Auto 5 showed. A $400 gaming experience in 2013 should have 60 frames per second as a default. Future games don't appear to be using 60 FPS as a starting reference either. The Division and Destiny are both targeting 30 FPS gaming. Even with developers learning to better optimize the games to run on console hardware, by the time 60 frames per second console games become commonplace, the rest of the world will have moved on to Oculus Rift 3D gaming or 4K 60 FPS gaming. As mentioned previously, the hardware power overhead started too low for the PlayStation 4 to provide an optimal next-generation gaming experience. The quality of games will peak quickly as developers reach the limits of hardware power. There are some bright rays of light ahead for an otherwise dark future. PlayStation 4 has many promising exclusives, such as infamous Second Son and Uncharted 4. We should expect masterful utility of the PlayStation 4 hardware from Naughty Dog, the studio that created The Last of Us. The Order 1886 is an intriguing original project. The promise of exclusive titles is one of the best reasons to invest in the PlayStation 4. If you buy a PlayStation 4, you have to make the concession that you don't care about graphics. Buying a PlayStation 4 further invalidates any argument you have about graphical comparisons with the Xbox One, because comparing console graphics is like arguing about minor league baseball. No matter how well you do, you will always be overshadowed by the big leagues, which is in this case the gaming PC. To some extent, you also make the concession that you don't care about getting the best gaming experience because a lot of future games will only play at 30 FPS. If you want to be on the cutting edge of gaming technology, that $400 you would otherwise spend on a PS4 is better invested in a new graphics card for your computer, such as the R9 290 or the GTX 780. The already large gap in graphical power between PCs and consoles will only widen, and consoles will be left in the dust as 4K gaming becomes more mainstream. Although the Nvidia Shield had a lukewarm reception amongst consumers, Nvidia is showing seriously powerful mobile computing ability with its Tegra processors. It is not a stretch to say that within 2 years, tablets and phones will have graphics on par with the PS4 and the Xbox One. Just this observation alone should show you how the consoles are already behind the curve in graphical technology. However, all that glitters with PC gaming is not gold. There are some advantages that the PS4 maintains, and these advantages may influence your purchase decision. With the PS4, you get accessibility and ease of use that you won't find in any gaming computer, making the PS4 suitable for the entire family. You also have access to heavily integrated social networking through PSN, whereas many gaming networks on the PC are not so heavily consolidated. In summary, the PlayStation 4 is built for the present and not the future. The graphics that look new and exciting now will soon become dated. The PS4 is better used as a family entertainment center instead of one gamer's dedicated gaming system. You should buy the PS4 if you don't care about graphics and are interested in the PlayStation 4's impressive library of future exclusive titles. Thank you for watching my review of the PlayStation 4. Leave a like rating on this video if I was informative and subscribe to my channel for more gaming reviews. My name is David and I'll see you next video.
Just have someone waiting.